on this Sunday of Advent, what we need to think about today is this, is that Jesus is the King that you and I are looking for. Worldly kings and leaders fail us, do they not? They judge by appearance. They judge by convenience. They are limited by the laws that bind them. They aim, sometimes it feels, to only protect themselves and their own. They rule by force. But this morning we are reminded that all earthly power falls short. We want a king deep down who will reign forever, who is both kind and just. We want a king who will defend the helpless, who will care for the afflicted, all while executing justice to the wicked. We want a king who will rule us not just by sheer force, but by humility and kindness of his word and his actions. Deep down, we want a king who will restore shalom, true peace. Christmas is our yearly reminder that it's only Jesus that can give to you what you are looking for. You are not going to find it wrapped up in a box under a tree. You're not going to find it anywhere on the dinner table for your family meal this week. You're not going to find it, adults, in the embrace of a lover. You're not going to find it there. You're going to find good things this week, I pray and I hope, but you are not going to find ultimate things in those places. Advent is a promise of hope. We sing, it's a thrill of hope, right? We're going to in a little bit. Only Christianity, out of all the ideas on this planet, features God who steps into our darkness, who steps into our story, and he restores all that is lost and broken in us and in this world, even down to the animal kingdom, which we're going to take a look at today. Jesus took on flesh and begins the process of restoring all things, and it ends not just with us going up to heaven, but with heaven coming down to earth. And today we look at Isaiah 11 to give us a picture, just a little bit of a picture of what this life looks like. Let's get to our proposition today. So if you're taking notes, which I hope you do, here's the big idea. That Jesus is God, Jesus is King, and Jesus is Judge. And he gives hope to the nations, and that means you, and that means me, through his promise to transform all things. That's what we see from Isaiah 11 today. And this morning, from adults down to our students, I want you to think about what you're hoping for. What do you hope for today? What do you hope for this week? What do you hope for in your life? We have to begin by asking, well, what is hope? And oftentimes, we begin to figure out definitions by figuring out what things are not. Hope is not dreaming. Hope is not wishful thinking, throwing a penny into a fountain, wishing upon a star. Hope is more than a feeling. And as Christians and as young students growing up, we have to learn that we are not our feelings, that we are not our dreams, we are not our wishes, and we can't base our lives on those things. Advent proves that you and I today can have real hope, what we'd say objective hope, that's not dependent on things that go up and down and left and right. As Christians, our hope and our joy and our peace are based not on our feelings and our experiences or our emotions. You see, our hope as Christians, our joy and our peace, it's based on a person. And Jesus is that person. Jesus is our ultimate hope because he was a child born and yet a king. Yes, he was born, but he's also God. And Isaiah 11 is going to show us how our Messiah, our hope, and our deliverer is both God and man. Only this person, this little boy who can do all these things, he's got to be God. Jesus is our hope because he comes into this world in order to make all things new. So this Christmas, if you make it your aim or your goal this week for emotions or traditions or for human relationships to be your hope, you're going to come to the end of this week and you're going to be disappointed. All gifts, they lose their shine, right? All food comes in and out. And every single relationship eventually has to say goodbye. Feelings can be good. I do pray that the food is great. I do pray for you for good food. And traditions are sweet. And relationships, they are so powerful. But none of these things are strong enough to be the object of all of your hope and all of your peace and all of your joy. It's only Jesus, because he's not just man, but he's also God. He can bear the weight of all that you're feeling. All of your hurts, all your frustrations, everything you're longing for, and you know it because he's God, it doesn't break him. He doesn't break down when you give all that you are to him. But instead, he takes all that you are and he promises to restore it. And that is our message on this Sunday of Advent. Let's get to our first point. As we go through Isaiah 11, the first thing that I want you to see, that it is Jesus who perfectly upholds both justice and mercy. And he does it as king, and he does it as judge. Let's talk about justice for a moment. It's a big word that students you may know a little bit about, but the adults around you, oh my, they love this word, and they want this word. Justice is giving to people what they deserve for what they have said and what they have done. That's justice. But let's talk about mercy for a moment. Mercy is not giving to people what they deserve for what they have said and what they have done. And what we need to think about this morning, that it's God and God alone who can perfectly give the justice and the mercy that we need. So Isaiah opens up by showing us how Jesus, this coming Messiah, is king, with justice in his hands, but he's also judge with mercy in his hands. Let's take a look. Verse 1. Isaiah tells us that a shoot is going to spring up from the stem of Jesse and a branch from his roots and bear fruit. So kiddos, we're not talking about our beloved Jesse in the back. This was written like over 2,000 years ago. Jesse's not that old, no matter how old you think he is. Okay? Isaiah is using what we call figurative language. Jesse's not actually a tree. He's a person and not our deacon in the back. Jesse is the father of King David, the shepherd boy who became the most important king of Israel. Jesse is depicted as a stump of a tree that was cut off. One day in the future, God promises and says that sometime after Isaiah 11, the sons of Jesse and David are no longer going to rule as kings. God himself cuts off that tree, cuts off that family tree, because of their words and because of their actions. But it's right here as we see God cutting off a tree, stopping the family tree of Jesse and David from ruling in Israel, that we also see his mercy. Right here, Messiah is depicted as a shoot or a branch from this tree. And this means that Messiah will be the great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson of Jesse and David. Now, from our students to adults, I want you to take a look at the screen right now to take a look at this picture. What you should see are two oak trees that have been cut down. Let me tell you the story about this. It was about a year ago. I was getting a little happy with my landscaping, and I could have sworn that Tisa's like, I don't like these trees. Take the chainsaw, lop them off. She's already shaking her head no. She wants these trees to be. And so I'm like, Tisa, I'm so sorry. So what do? Let's just leave them. That was about a year ago. And what I want you to see right now is that over the course of this year, you can see shoots that are coming up from this tree. Do you all see that? It's taken some time, right? But we can see this big old stump and these little shoots coming out. New life is taking place from something that was once cut off or cut down. And that is the promise of the gospel. God uses this image to tell you something about Jesse and David and one of their great-great-great-great-grandsons, Messiah, Jesus. A son will be born to the family tree of Jesse and David. And we read this morning in our scripture reading that Mary herself is a daughter of King David from David's line. Even Joseph, Jesus' stepfather, is a son of David. And we take from this that Jesus himself is the fulfillment. He is the shoot that comes out of the stump of Jesse. But this morning we need to realize this, that Jesus is more than the great-great-grandson of Jesse and David. He is also God himself. Look at these next verses together. Isaiah says that the Spirit of the Lord is going to rest on him. He's going to have wisdom and understanding and counsel and strength and knowledge and fear of the Lord. Jesus is not only the ultimate son of David, who was promised to be the king who will come back. Jesus is God himself. This is the reality. There is no single person, myself, yourself, or any of David's sons, who can claim to do verse 2 perfectly. To have all the Spirit of God, all wisdom, all understanding, all counsel, and strength. The reason why this person can do this, because he is God himself. God's Spirit rests on him. Every single person, including David's sons, failed to live this out. But because Jesus is king and Jesus is God himself, he can rule and he can judge and he can be the wisdom and understanding and counsel and strength that we need. Let's get to verses 3 and 4 now. Isaiah says that this figure, this shoot from the stem of Jesse, that he is going to delight in the fear of the Lord. And he's not going to judge by what his eyes see. He's not going to make a decision by what his ears hear. With righteousness, he's going to judge the poor. And he's going to decide with fairness for the afflicted of the earth. He's going to strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips, he's going to slay the wicked. Because Jesus not only fears God, but delights to fear God. He can be the king and the judge that you and I really need. Now, in this country, justice is a big concept and ideal. That's why the adults in your life, they really do care about justice, because they're Americans and justice is ingrained in them, and they're also made in the image of God who's longing for a true king. I want you to take a look at another image on the screen right now from our students to our adults. This is Lady Justice. And Lady Justice is one of the most foundational principles and ideals of our country in America. You will see traditionally Lady Justice is depicted with scales in her right hand, a sword in her left, and she's blindfolded. And from very young Americans, we are taught that justice has balanced scales, has the power of the sword, and can judge blindly. That means it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, what the color of your skin is, or how powerful you are in this country. Justice is blind. Getting what you deserve does not depend on your gender, your color, how much money you have in your bank account. As many of us know, as we grow up, justice in America is not blind. It sees. Justice looks at who we are. Justice doesn't balance facts and evidence on scales. And justice may look like she has a great sword, but it's blunt and dull. But Advent reminds us that Jesus is God and King and Judge who can rule in the way that we need. Now, students, let me speak to you for a moment, okay? We want more and more every single day for your hope to be in Jesus. To make the basis of your life Jesus, not your feelings, not your dreams, not your wishes, but Jesus himself. And what God wants you to understand this morning is that it's only through Jesus that you can experience perfect peace and perfect justice. This is the reality. If someone in your classroom does something that hurts you, your teacher really can't make it right. You can go to your principal, and he or she can't really make it right, can't make the pain go away. And honestly, as great as your parents are, they can't do it either. And honestly, at the end of the day, you can't make yourself feel better. There's no amount of funny videos that can cover up that you're hurt. Many of the adults in your life, and maybe in this room, they struggle with justice. They want to give people what they deserve, especially if they hurt people that they love. They have justice issues. They're not alone. I have justice issues too. They think that they can give people what they deserve. And they try to bring justice to others that only Jesus can give. And they prove that justice doesn't have a blindfold on. Justice really only sees those that they care about who's getting hurt or getting left out. And they prove that justice is not blind. And that shows how special God's justice is. If you can begin at this age to begin to learn about justice and about trusting in Jesus as your God and King and Judge, it's going to help you when you're hurt, when you don't feel right, when people have said things that have hurt you, that they have done things to hurt you. Because Jesus is God, King, and Judge, he can execute justice faithfully. Now, in our text, we see that Jesus is going to care for the poor, he's going to care for the afflicted, and he is going, it said, slay the wicked. Here we have a king and a judge that would be fair to all people, giving them both the mercy that we need and the justice that we deserve. In Jesus, we have someone who has all the power and all the opportunity and all of the desire to be merciful and to be just. And our next point, out of all things, right after he's like, I'm going to care for the poor, the afflicted, I'm going to slay the wicked. Look what Jesus does with his power as we go to point 2. We see him radically transforming all things back to God's original design. A part of Advent every single year, one of these Sundays, as we lead up to Christmas, we need to spend time looking at ourselves, looking at the people in our lives, looking at our world for who they are and who they aren't, and what they are and what they aren't. Here at Branchton, we say that we are beautiful, yet, you fill it in, broken image bearers of God. This world out here, the mountains and the valleys and the rivers and the ocean and nature and animals, they are beautiful, yet they too are broken. In Isaiah 11, we see God's plan to mend our brokenness, to take us and to make us whole, to experience what the ancients called shalom. I want you to look at, out of all things, look at the end of verse 6. Where does it begin? It begins with a little boy who will lead them. A little boy. You see, God doesn't mend us through empires and through social class and social power. God mends us through humility. God mends us through a coming child. God is going to take this little boy, a child born, a son given, and he is going to lead the world back to its original design. Let's peel back now to the beginning of verse 6 and see what this little child will do as he transforms things back to God's original design. Verse 6, the wolf will dwell with the lamb, not lunch on the lamb, dwell with the lamb. The leopard will lie down with the young goats. The calf and the lion and the fatling will be together. Let's keep going in verse 7 and 8. The cow and the bear will graze. Their young are going to lie down together. The lion is going to eat straw like an ox. The nursing child will play by the hole of the cobra. And the weaned child will put his hand in the viper's den. What we see right here is shalom. One application of shalom, the restoration of peace on earth. And what we see here is wolves and lambs, leopards and goats, lions and calves, bears and cows together. And we see their young together. Now, you've watched National Geographic shows, right? You put a lion and a calf together, what's going to happen on National Geographic? Feast, right? we know that if a child, a nursing child or a weaned child, plays by snakes, what is most likely going to happen, right? But here we see the animal kingdom together. Here we see people in the animal kingdom together, and there's no violence. How can this be? Today, the animal kingdom is at odds with itself and with us. So this little child who leads us, he will transform the earth beyond all that we can currently imagine in our wildest imagination. Isaiah is giving us a glimpse into what eternity looks like. You see, eternity isn't merely when we pass away, us going to heaven. No. Eternity is heaven coming down to earth. Listen to how Dr. Keller says it. I've been taking a look a lot at Hidden Christmas. It's also in our devotionals this week. Dr. Keller says, Isaiah gives us a picture of a world the way it is supposed to be. Wolves and lambs together, lions eating straw, children safe where danger once ruled. This is not sentimental poetry. Isaiah is describing shalom, not just peace as the absence of conflict, but the presence of complete harmony, justice, and delight. Everything is now fitting together the way that God intends. And what this means, Vernon, is that Advent is eschatology. Advent teaches us about eternity. And that is why God's government, God's leadership through Jesus, a relationship with Jesus, born a child and yet a king, is exactly what you need this Christmas. Dr. Keller continues and he says, note where this comes from. It does not come from a mighty empire or a dominant ruler. It comes from a shoot, from a stump, from weakness, from something that looks like nothing. That's the gospel. God brings the greatest renewal out of our greatest apparent loss. Students, let me talk to you for a moment. We, as the adults in your life that love you, cherish you, pray for you, we want you to know where true strength comes from. Strength is not just power, muscle. Strength actually comes from weakness. As a Christian, in the moment you feel entirely weak, at the same time you can feel entirely strong. It's the craziest thing in this world. Now, the people around you, maybe in your life, they may have some crazy ideas about where strength comes from. Maybe strength is owning a gun, having enough money in your bank account, having a big house, or having a nice car. That's where true strength comes from. But if they don't follow Jesus, they have it wrong. And you can tell them I said that if you get in trouble. Here as a church, we say it this way. To be rich in life, you become poor. To be the greatest in this life, you become the least. And to become first, you become last. You see, God, I think you would agree, is the most powerful person in the universe, right? I can imagine how big his muscles are. He created black holes in Jupiter and Saturn. And how does God come to us? As a king reigning from Washington or from Rome or from Cairo? No. The most powerful person in the universe becomes a child, becomes a baby who's fragile and humble. It comes from a little shoot that comes from a stump that was broken down. Dr. Keller continues and says it this way. Christianity does not say, therefore, escape the world. Christianity says the world will be healed. The gospel doesn't just save souls. It renews creation. Isaiah 11 is not about heaven, going to heaven when you die. It's about heaven coming down to earth. And once again, students, let me be clear with you. Jesus is the only person that can help you understand your weakness, your feelings, your brokenness. He's the only person who can heal and who can mend your brokenness. The brokenness, if you realize, the people around me, they hurt me. They always hurt me, and they can't stop hurting me. and the brokenness that's in this world. It's only Jesus who can mend it. He created it all. If he can put it together, he can restore it. And he cares so much about you. Not just our students, our adults as well. He cares so much about you that he promises that one day he is going to come back and he's going to restore all things to its original design. But I also want you to think about it this way. If God cares so much about wolves and lambs and leopards and goats and calves and lions and tigers and bears, oh my, and cobras and vipers, if Jesus cares so much about babies and children, how much more should we care for them? Right? This means that Jesus wants you in your time here on this earth to find your way to care for children, to care for babies, to care for animals, to care for creation, because he's coming back and he's restoring all things. Jesus promises to bring them back to their factory settings, their default settings. Jesus wants you to care for this earth and all that is in it in your own way, wherever you are. And students, I pray that you would trust in this promise today. When your world becomes crazy, when people hurt you, you don't understand what you're feeling and why you're feeling it, you will think again that a little child will lead you. And he will rule not through a sword, but through humility. And he will redo everything on this earth. That's how much he cares for you. Eternity is here on earth, where Jesus transforms things back to how life was meant to be. No more sin, no more suffering, no more sorrow, no more evil. And that is our collective hope, is it not? Hope is now the topic of our application. Let's go there now for application. This is what I pray for, that today you would see how important and vital it is for you to set Jesus as your standard. Well, what's a standard? We'll get to that. That you will set him as your standard of hope for all of your days. But think about it. And even students, I think you'll realize this, you've experienced this before. Christmas Day, you want to wrap all the presents. You think, I'm going to have so much fun. I got a week and a half left to break. And then by Saturday, all the toys and all that fun is worn off, right? They're no longer fun anymore. You've probably broken half of them, right? All the presents are unwrapped. The dinner is over. You know what we begin to do? We start saying, okay, I play with all these new and fun things. What's next? Oh, it's the new year, right? It's going to be 2026. And along with this new year comes the prospect of hope. For some of us, we're like, nah, we're a year older. But as Christians, the Christian elderly has the greatest hope. So many people are hopeful that the next year will be better than the last. But honestly, how do we know this for sure? Especially people who are not Christians. What basis, what evidence, what facts, what proof do they have to come to the conclusion that the next year is going to be better than last year? You see, only Christianity can give you certainty about the future. That the future will be better than the past. And for us as Christians, we tell you that our hope does not rest in our feelings. Our hope does not rest in our experiences, our dreams, and our wishes. Our hope rests in a person. And it's not mom and dad or that emotional romantic relationship. That's not our greatest hope. Hope is a God-given thing. And God wants you to have hope today. Not just to commiserate in your feelings, whatever's going on, but to have hope that today and tomorrow and next month and next year is going to be better. And now you know why. It's not because of new toys under the tree or because it's all of a sudden 2026. He wants you to have hope because he's given you his child. He's given you his son. He's given you himself. One day, Messiah will return. God and King and Judge will return to right all wrongs, to give grace to the poor and the afflicted, and to slay the wicked. And he's going to transform the earth and all that is in it back to its original design. Jesus is our hope. So hope is more than a feeling. Hope is more than an experience. Hope is more than wishful thinking. And hope is more than your dreams. Hope is rooted in what God says, what God has done, what God is doing, and what God is going to do in the future. And Christians, we strive to set our hope on Jesus, not wishes, not dreams, and not feelings. So let's get to our final verse, verse 10. So we can see how this promise of Messiah ends with hope. Isaiah says that in that day, nations will resort to the roots of Jesse. And he will stand as a signal or a standard for the peoples. And his place is a resting place. And it will be glorious. What you need to see, adults, and what I want our students to see, is that people from all kinds of places, all shapes and sizes, all kinds of colors, the nations can hope in Jesus. And that means today you can set Jesus as your hope. Isaiah points to a day when the nations are going to run to the root of Jesse. But you have to remember, Jesse and his family, his sons and David, they're actually from one nation. They're from one people group, one skin color, one ethnicity. But God takes from one family and causes all the families of the earth, all kinds of people to run to this one family, and then we become one family. That's the gospel. All kinds of people will see Jesus for who he is, and they are going to run to him because he is our signal. He is our standard. Now, for a moment, I want you to think of like a flag or a banner, all right? Okay, Bucs fans, think of the Bucs flag, okay? Or think of the American flag. But in older times, flags and standards served as a way of communication on a battlefield. I was going to bring up a video from Lord of the Rings. I decided not to because there's standards and flags and the armies that fight in Middle-earth. Didn't do it. I wanted to, though. A standard was used in ancient warfare. So on the battlefield, the commanding officer would call for a standard to be raised and do a certain thing with it to communicate to their troops, to inspire courage, to change tactics, or you need to run towards this standard, right? We're losing the war. Isaiah 11 says that Jesus is our standard. Jesus is our general who gives command. He is our captain who inspires courage. He fought the battle for us. He fought the battle with us. And he lost his life in this battle on the cross. All that so you can win your life in eternity when heaven comes down to earth. And what this means is that through the life and the death of Jesus, through the servant leadership of Jesus, through the death of Jesus, we get it back. We get it all back. Everything that we have lost, everything that is broken and wrong in this world, we get back in ways that we cannot imagine. That is Christmas. Hope is found when you today run to the root of Jesse. Hope is found when you set Jesus to be your most important relationship and the most important person you must experience this Christmas. Jesus can give you the rest, the hope, the joy that you were created for, but you must do one thing, just one thing. You must set Jesus as your hope. See, there are many things that you can turn to today for hope. You can turn to your mom and dad. You can turn to a friend. You can turn to your spouse, a romantic relationship. You can turn to the government for help. You can turn to this church for help. You can turn to your feelings, your wishes, and your dreams. And many of these things are good things. They are good things, but they're not ultimate. None of these things can do for you that Messiah promises to do in Isaiah 11. Mom and dad can do many things, but last time I checked, they cannot radically transform all things so that wolves and lambs can dwell and hang out with each other. I don't think they can do that. So today I pray that you would set Jesus as your ultimate hope, that you would run to the root of Jesse. Students and adults, the greatest thing that you can experience this Christmas is setting Jesus as your hope. One Keller quote, and then we'll take up our offering. So good. He says, Advent means that we live between the promise and the fulfillment. The kingdom has begun, but it's not yet complete. You can see a shoot. You can see the growth, but the stump is still there. And that is why we wait. And we wait with hope, not resignation, because we know how the story ends. And that's the preaching of God's word on this Sunday of Advent.